No, it's not coming up yet. It should be
there. You go. It's live.
Okay, perfect.
The little red thing is on. Cool.
Hi, everybody. Are we there yet? No, I don't know. There we are. Yes.
Cool.
Right. Cool. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Paws and People. How many episodes have we done, Antonette?
This is number 13.
Oh, my word.
So can you believe it?
Yeah. We missed one, so it's 14 weeks later since the first one. It's awesome. Great.
Yeah, I think we only skipped the one because of weather. Can you believe it?
That's our biggest problem is guys, and I'm sure our regulars actually has noticed that we can have Antonette disappears quite a lot.
Yeah, Holly, I'm gonna make a little T-shirt for myself that says the in and out girl, because my internet reception on the farm is really rubbish. So if I disappear, just carry on.
I'll
find you again. I'll just find you again.
Antonette, introduce us to our guest.
Great. It's my great pleasure this evening to introduce our guest tonight. She spent her career on a question most of us never really think about, and that's the trillions of microbes living inside of our pets. Dr. Holly Ganz holds a PhD from UC Davis. She did her postdoctoral work at UC Berkeley and founded AnimalBiome. This is the company behind the microbiome testing and restoration science that's changing how we keep cats and dogs healthy. She's a global pioneer in gut health, and she's here to help us understand the engine room of our pets' well-being. Holly, welcome to Paws and People.
Oh, thank you so much.
And while we're at it, tell us a little bit about Holly and where did this all start?
So yes, I am. Actually, I started studying the microbiome, actually looking at soil in Namibia. Thinking about how wildlife disease, but at the same time, I had adopted a herding dog, who came to rule my life as herding dogs can do. And she, I just wanted to sort of orient my research around helping her, and be able to combine my passions. And so I took an appointment at the vet school and started thinking about dog and cat microbiomes. And as part of that, I did a citizen science project called Kittybiome. And I asked people to send cat poop, and with just the idea that we would look at what bacteria were in the poop and try and see if we could understand if it had relevance for health and disease, not really knowing what we were sort of like starting. What I found was that a lot of the people who wanted to send me their cat's poop had a problem with their cat's digestive health. Not surprising, right? But I didn't know. I kind of thought, oh, maybe it'll be like, I don't know, 23andMe, learn about your pet, Fitbit. But a lot of people had cats with chronic diarrhea. They also can have constipation, other problems. And they felt like they had been on kind of a medical merry-go-round with their veterinarian, and they tried everything, and they were still having like puddles of poop. And actually, sometimes cats don't even go in the litter box when they're having this problem. It was really horrible. And the more I dug into it, the more I learned that like a lot of veterinarians believe that kind of chronic inflammation associated with inflammatory bowel disease can even lead to cancer, like GI lymphoma. And so they really were begging for new approaches to try and help solve the problem. And I felt like I was at a point in my career where I wanted to actually give back and help people. And there's lots of fun questions that I like to ask. And I loved the work I was doing with wildlife, but it was really gratifying to start to talk to people and see what problems they had and see if any of the science we were doing could be helpful.
That's a very, very, very interesting start. And it's you sort of stumbled across it. I remember, I think the first time I met Holly was it in 2018?
That's right.
Chicago. Yeah, 2018 Chicago. And I literally hang on your lips because of what everything that you said was so fresh and doing what I do and learning how somebody actually studies this was for me was amazing, and I've been really I've been following her a lot. She's amazing when it comes to the research she does, and I just think her product is amazing from my side. And it all started with studying kiddie poo, not knowing what you're gonna end up doing, and that's how AnimalBiome started. How long did it take you to from coming from that part to realize, okay, now there's a real business that you can really help with your methods, because you're sort of a pioneer in terms of what you've done.
It's true. I mean, I did the Kitty Biome project starting in 2015, and we thought, well, at least let's figure out what healthy looks like in cats, and then see, what we find. But because all these people said, look, I'm living with terrible diarrhea, my cat's losing weight, right? I mean, they were really stressed out and worried. And when I looked at the bacteria using DNA sequencing, I found that a lot of them were missing beneficial bacteria that should help the gut function better. But when I told people, okay, your cat is dysbiotic and they need some more support for their gut health, they were like, how do I fix that, right? And I was just doing a test, and so I said, really, what they need is a fecal transplant, because these gut bacteria aren't in probiotics today. And they were like, my veterinarian doesn't do that, right? Or that sounds crazy and weird, right? And so I decided in 2016 that I should start a company and figure out a way to give a fecal transplant easier. So I developed a way of doing a freeze drying poop and making it in a capsule so that we could introduce these bacteria that can be really life-changing when you are going from that kind of poor gut health to being healthier again. And also we've started to isolate those bacteria, and we're creating what we call like next generation probiotics, so that in the future, maybe we don't have to do a fecal transplant to be able to, get access to good bacteria.
Okay, that is very interesting in terms of finding out how to do the bacteria. Antonette, you've got a question.
Yes, I think just maybe just give an overall explanation of what you mean by gut microbiome, and also why you call it the engine room of the pet's health.
Right.
Just maybe make that connection for us.
Yeah. I mean, so as I think Antonette already mentioned, right, there are trillions of bacteria that live in and on us and on our pets. And they're principally bacteria, but there are also a lot of viruses that infect bacteria. They're not like viruses that infect the cat or dog, but bacteria have their own little viruses and there's a lot of little interactions going on with the bacteria fighting or helping each other. It's a whole ecosystem interacting. And yeah, of the microbiomes we have, the GI tract is the most diverse and most like an ecosystem. Like we have them on our skin, but it's smaller communities there. And other places. A lot of work now going on vaginal microbiome, especially in humans, and really interesting work. But anyway, these bacteria that live in our GI tract, which is what we tend to mostly focus on, we do some work on oral as well. They actually help to break down the food that we eat. And so that's like the most basic expected thing, that they play helpful roles in digestion. As a result of that, because they need food to eat, and then they by digesting food create compounds, that some of which are neurotransmitters for us, or other beneficial compounds that help to, like short chain fatty acids that can reduce inflammation in the gut. It's a weird thing to think about, but like, because we're bringing food into our bodies, right, through our mouths and into the GI tract, that system has to protect us and our pets from invading parasites and pathogens. So 70% of the immune cells in the body occur along the GI tract. And it has to learn how to function correctly and identify a friend from a foe correctly. And sometimes if like the immune system and the GI tract don't develop the way that they should, it can get confused, and we can end up with these sort of chronic like autoimmune conditions.
And I think that is so I literally think every pet household has got some some issues with this. It might be to a smaller extent or to a great extent, but I don't. I read somewhere a while ago, I think studies from somewhere in Europe, and I can't remember now exactly where, that to find a human on human gut dysbiosis and getting human fecal samples that's healthy, you will get maybe 1 out of 1,000,000 humans you if you get that, you'll get a healthy gut bacteria. And the same for dogs. There's all of them, a lot of them does not have that. And I definitely think there's a big correlation between the humans in the house and the pets in the house. If there's a gut dysbiosis in humans, it very often comes down to the dogs as well. We don't just always realize it, but I've seen it. A lot of my clients has got the same issues with themselves as what they've got with their dogs.
That is a question that comes up a lot. We haven't really looked into that, but I think our research, which we have done, suggests that like at least 1 in 5 cats and dogs does suffer from a chronic GI condition. And that's actually the same number of what people have found for human populations. So at least 20%. And then in terms of like imbalances, it's more common. And that's because like maybe we don't feed ourselves a very healthy diet. There's been like really nice work done, like where they looked at the fast food diet and what it does to your GI tract. And it promotes inflammation. It reduces like the mucosal layer, which is really protective along the intestinal wall, and actually promotes like carbohydrate loving bacteria that actually some of them will actually eat that mucus, that beneficial mucus, when you start to eat like a lot of, sort of fried and fatty foods.
So now, sorry, you're not talking about humans. We are omnivores, so we're supposed to be able to eat carbohydrates diets.
Yes, so, but not like McDonald's every day, which is what they were testing.
So yeah, but I think by feeding your dogs kibble, you're feeding them McDonald's every day. I'm not very spoken about it, but that's what we do with our dogs, and they carnivores. So how much damage does that do to a dog's biome if you feed them stuff with processed fats and all the crap that is in kibble? I mean, surely what you're saying now is this definitely has got a real effect on our dogs, or am I just trying to sell myself here when I say that?
I would just say that there are some quality kibbles, just to be like, I would worry especially about the budget kibbles, right? Where they're like, the ingredients are more questionable, they tend to put fewer proteins into them because it's cheaper to make a more higher carbohydrate kibble. And but there are some kibbles that are higher protein, and then and they do put in some nice fibers. So in general, I do think that the high heat, the extrusion process, there are like things that are happening that do affect nutrition. And it was a convenient food that came out of World War II. And maybe we went a little overboard with some of our convenience foods for people, and also maybe for our pets, right? I think we're realizing that. And so there's been this whole movement, right, towards fresh food. So the cooked and the raw food, and it, like I wouldn't want to eat, right, McDonald's every day, or like a, astronaut food every day. I like to have fresh food. And and I think we do see actually like growing evidence that can be healthier. We don't yet have like the longitudinal data to know like how it impacts longevity, but I think people are working on it.
Yeah, if you look at how many of our pets are ill, maybe if we can just go back to the dysbiosis, which is the imbalance of the gut. How often do you see that? And also, what should pet parents look out for? What are signs to look out for if there's an imbalance or a dysbiosis?
Yeah, so we tend to use like microbiome testing as a way to identify that. But an easy way to identify it is also just are they having like diarrhea regularly, right? Or a lot of constipation? Do they have regurgitation and vomiting? Like a little bit of that is healthy, right? Like we can eat something bad accidentally, right? And have food poisoning. But like if you're healthy, that should pass, right, in a day or so, right? And that's the body's natural response to eating something bad, which we should avoid doing. But we should be able to be resilient. But when you have a dysbiotic microbiome, it can't handle that kind of disruption. It's already disrupted, and it may be more in a precarious state. So I tend to define dysbiosis as being an imbalance in the composition of bacteria in the gut, and it's less diverse. And but yeah, if they are feeding a diet that's like doesn't have the right mix of macronutrients, then it can also be the diet plays a critical role also in feeding the bacteria, and as well as the host, the pet. But yeah, I think those main gastrointestinal signs, right, like loose stool, diarrhea, constipation, they shouldn't have a lot of gas. I've had pet parents tell me like, oh, dogs fart, but like healthy dogs should not be, farting all the time. That's not what I consider normal. Vomiting, right? Like, okay, a cat can have a hairball and like actually shows a certain amount of motility that they can actually appropriately like eliminate it and have it not get stuck. But so it depends on how often. And then are they eating? Are they maintaining a healthy weight? There's a lot you can learn just from watching them.
That you mentioned about less diverse. So basically, if we're feeding them the same thing every day, we're weakening that diversity and we're weakening the microbiome.
Yes, I mean, so that's the thing. Like when I got my first dog. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Antonette. Go ahead.
I think she's frozen.
Antonette's gone. Okay, so yes, so it used to be that like the veterinarians would tell you not to change the food, right? Because their clients would, if you change the food, then they often will have soft stool during that transition, and people can find that really alarming, right? We do actually really look at our dog's poops and care a lot about it. Actually, just an aside, it's a funny thing. When I started offering like microbiome testing as a service for people asked me like, will people really want to collect poop and put it in a tube for you? And it turns out like, yes, they absolutely will. They're handling their dog's poop every day, and it's not such a problem because these are very dedicated pet parents who really care and want to understand how to keep them healthy.
I think this, I always say, is like the amount of dog poop photos I've got on my phone from clients. People might think I'm some very strange fetish, but I do find that our listeners, my clients, is very focused on dog poop, and they understand how important it is to keep an eye on that and stuff. Because I mean, the reality is, I would say 90% of people that switch their dogs to raw has got an issue. So yeah, we will say a gut. I get it a lot where people say, but my dog hasn't got diarrhea. And I'll say, but it's got a gut issue because it's scratching and it's itching and it's got all kinds of other symptoms. So having dysbiosis of the gut does not just mean we're going to have diarrhea. Am I correct in saying that?
That's right. And I do want to dive in on the skin thing, because like the skin is the largest organ of the body. And so actually a gut problem can show up on skin. It's not obvious, but that's actually, the severe skin conditions tend to have dysbiosis, or these severe imbalances in the gut bacterial community. And yes, that tends to include a loss of diversity, so that fewer of these beneficial groups of bacteria, and that allows some of the, like what I call pathobiont, or you can think of them as like a frenemy, like E. coli. Like every dog should have some E. coli, but it should be like a small percentage of the gut microbiome. But when you take antibiotics and lose a lot of the good things, then E. coli can go a little crazy because it doesn't have any competitors keeping it in place. And there's some other groups like that, like streptococcus, anyway, that also tend to flare up. But I think I didn't fully answer Antonette's question about variety. And so like there's really nice work that's been done with people showing that people who live like more traditional lifestyles of like a hunter-gatherer lifestyle, like we all did like 10,000 or 5,000 years ago, depending on where we're from, or more recently, eating seasonally is more of where we originated, right? And so like having diet that changes throughout the year is more of like the ancestral state for us. And that helps to support a diverse and resilient microbiome.
That's Nature is just brilliant,
Yeah.
forcing us to be diverse in our diet. It's amazing. Yeah.
And also, I just think how boring would it be to eat the same kibble for your whole life?
Yes.
I know.
Eat a McDonald's burger every day, 3 times a day for the rest of your life is terrible.
Do you guys remember there was a good few years ago, there was a guy, I think in the UK, and he did a McDonald's experiment for like 30 days.
Yeah.
He only ate McDonald's, and the results was, I mean, his health just went like whoop from that.
Yeah. Very much. I think that was the last time I ever ate McDonald's.
Yeah, me too.
But it was quite convenient sometimes on the way to kids' sports. Just stop at McDonald's and get them a burger. And then when that experiment came out, I said, I do not pay a cent further to McDonald's. Sorry, guys, this is not happening.
No,
So,
definitely.
Holly, you study a lot of how lifestyle and medication affect immunity through the gut, and you've touched on it just now. But things like antibiotics, processed foods, stress, that's all stuff that knocks the microbiome.
That's right.
How long or how quick can, if it tries to recover on its own, is it a long process? What intervention do you need to do when you are sitting with that? I'm not talking now I'm saying we don't have a canvas of we starting to change diet and stuff like that. But you start with a really, really stuffed up gut, and how long do you think it should take to see some betterment and some improvement, or is this now a question of how long is a piece of string? Type of
Well, it does depend, I think, but there was a study where they gave healthy dogs metronidazole, and it took them like 5 or 6 weeks. They measured it after, and some of them by 5 or 6 weeks still hadn't recovered. Some of them recovered within a few weeks. More of them had recovered by 5 or 6 weeks, but then some of them took much longer, and in some cases, they don't recover. And so there are things you can do, right? Like feeding a diverse diet, adding some fiber can help to support more diversity of bacteria, especially in dogs. Just a little, though. I'm not saying like dogs should be, like eating tons of fiber, but even a small amount can make a big difference. Like a quarter teaspoon, not a lot, right? But I don't know if that's a unit you use. Do you guys use teaspoons?
No, that is a unit.
Yes, that's a universal unit.
Okay, good. Otherwise, a quarter gram, right? Yeah.
So I very often think we very often do not value the importance of a prebiotic, not a probiotic, a prebiotic, the stuff that you give to prepare the gut, in order to help, and that is what feeds that your gut. That's the fiber and the stuff that feed your dog's gut. So something is happening that side.
Oh no, sorry, my light went out. I have this like motion sensor if I sit for too long. Sorry. It's good for me to get up and stand, I guess. Anyway,
no, it is. So the importance of prebiotics, preparing the gut and helping it as well, is, in my opinion, is very important, and we overlook that importance quite often.
It's true, and I think in some communities they would argue like the dogs don't need to eat vegetables or fibers, but we see that like if you add a little bit, it does really help to support these good bacteria. And I think they do eat like a little grass, or like my dog likes he loves foraging. He eats all kinds of random things in the neighborhood. He'll even eat like olive pits. I don't know any other dog that does that, but it's those, like we used to think, right, when I was coming up in school, that like we didn't understand the role that the fibers played, right? We thought they're insoluble, like there's no nutritional value. But now it turns out, well, the value is that they help to support the microbiome. So
if somebody says my dog eats a lot of grass, I always say to them, it's fine that they eat grass. It's good for their gut. It's when they graze all day long like sheep.
Exactly.
Then you start to to worry. It's like too much of anything is always a problem. So if a dog eats grass, it's sort of like foraging. It's not bad for them.
That's right. And you can toss on some greens, and like carrots are good, right? There are all kinds of opportunities with fruit and vegetables to give them a little bit of fiber.
Okay. I just want to say a little bit, because I actually had somebody phoning me yesterday talking to me, and she feeds about 90% of what the dog's food is things like carrots and sweet potato and apple, carrots and pumpkin, and the other 10% is kibble. And then I always say, then you ask why my dog's got diarrhea, because you also can't do too much. A little bit, like a teaspoon is good. Now for a 3 kilogram Mr. Miyagi, we won't do a teaspoon of that. But for a 10 kilogram dog, a teaspoon is very appropriate to add that to food. So that's normally the advice that I give. Only another question that I found that comes up, I think almost daily. I don't know, Antonette, if you get it as well on your forum and questions, is my dog eats poop.
Mm-hmm.
Now tell us, is that really bad? What does that mean? And when do we need to be alert when your dog eats poop? Because I think they're telling us something when they eat poop.
I do think you have to say what poop. So they call that coprophagy. It's one of my favorite topics as a biologist who loves to nerd out on weird things. So they can be telling you something. It can be like my dogs love rabbit poop. So and there's like goose poop and horse poop. But I feel like when they're starting to eat a lot of dog poop, or like the really gross thing is that they'll really like human poop. So we absolutely don't want that, right? Like that's disgusting. And right. But nobody likes their dog really eating poop. It can be telling you something, or it can be like a habit that they got, so it depends. I think the question is to make sure, do they have any symptoms? Like, are they having diarrhea, right? Or a lot of vomiting, where they might be self-medicating with the poop. I consider the fecal transplant, that might be nature's first fecal transplant, is that they eat poop, right? Lots of animals do that as a way of giving their babies koalas, they have to feed some poop to the baby koalas, and otherwise they couldn't digest eucalyptus. They have a really special microbiome. I think they should only worry about it if it seems really compulsive and it's excessive, and they're having a chronic GI problem.
I find that if my dogs eat the rabbit poo on the grass, if they get outside, we've got our property split for various reasons. But now on the one side where the dogs can't come, there's a gazillion rabbits, bunnies, like feral bunnies. And if they get out, they go for where they can find the bunny poop. And I've got 2 dogs that always get a GI problem when they eat that. If they've been out there, they've eaten rabbit poop, then I've got diarrhea, and it always causes an issue. But poop eating for me is really a thing. Is if your dog if your dog is healthy and it eats another healthy dog's poop, and it's not excessive, don't worry too much about it. Horse poop, I think, is actually quite a good thing, because it's mostly grass, and it depends on what the horse has been eating though. But it's actually fermentation that it gives it a little bit of fermentation into the gut. But that is not
we
something
have it
that
with the Retha, with the ridgebacks here on the farm with us, and when the calves are pooping, they've got this custody poop, and the dogs absolutely love it. But I've never really. Sometimes they have really, really smelly farts because they've eaten something they really shouldn't have. But I think they've got quite a strong constitution, because it doesn't seem to bother them. And the horse, when we had horses as well, they would eat. If there was an opportunity, they would have the horse poop as well.
Go for the horse poop. It's very, very obvious. Mine always go for wherever we walk and there's horse poop, they go for it. It's a little bit and whatever, but that doesn't give them upset stomachs. It's only the rabbit poop that upset stomachs.
Well, mine do fine on the rabbit poop. I do worry about diseases like the goose poop, right? Like that could potentially, they could get an influenza virus from eating that, but they haven't. You know, I try to avoid it, but it is awkward, right? If they're off leash, it's really hard to control this.
With us, is Hadida poop for me is a
Hadida
concern.
poop, yes.
Yeah, because
with the spear circle.
So that I really try and keep them not eating the Hadida poop, because that's the one that I worry about. So. And I think we need to touch this kibble thing. I'll stay away from it. Antonette can do also kibble.
Yeah, there we go. Just keep your heart rate down. Obviously, lots of pet parents still feed kibble. So, you know, how can they add fresh food to that to help their dogs be more resilient and to help the gut bacteria be more diverse? That's a smart way to feed both things.
Yeah, I mean, I think we know, right, that we're not going to be able to convince every pet parent to switch to a fresh diet. But we can, right? But we want to help all of them and like meet people where they are. And so I think my rule of thumb is usually something like, you know, you can add up to 10% of the diet can be a fresh topper. The big focus here, I don't know if it's the same where you are, is that the kibbles are designed to be sort of complete and balanced nutrition. And so you just have to figure out how do you reformulate if it's a complete food, right? A raw food, then you could probably do more than the 10%, right? Because you're not just adding muscle meat on top.
And feeding it in this, and look, this is a huge head turnaround for me. Because for me, I just see red flags because I look from another point of view on that. But when somebody do that, and I mean, I would really like to have some people have a little bit of fresh of it. So my advice normally is feed the kibble separate and feed the raw on a separate meal because of the digestion phase, whatever, in terms of that. And then what you can add to your kibble is add some bone broth or some tripe of things that's easily digested. And if you soak your kibble a little bit in broth and just get a little bit more moisture, and then it also helps a little bit easier to go down and start digesting a little bit better than that. What's your take on that?
I think that sounds great. I know there's like some changing school of thoughts for how many meals you feed your dog, but I tend to have these geriatrics, and I think more meals is probably better for their more delicate state. Depends on the dog, but I know I like that. I was wondering, and bone broth is really great. Big fan of that, especially like, what do you think about kefir? I know we've talked about that. I think we both had our kefir obsessions.
I'm a big fan of kefir, and I think I use kefir a lot. So goat's milk kefir for me is something that my dogs get often, and I make it interesting. So I was very many meals that I'll take either a banana or some blueberries or some pawpaw, and I make a little smoothie with a kefir, and that's what they then get. It's just to add the prebiotics and some extra peptin with for digestion and so on. So kefir for me is almost a must in every diet. But I do also believe, and this is something I think we have spoken about it. Or I might have thought we've spoken about it, but I also don't believe you must feed the same probiotic day in and day out. You can't, because you're going to create the imbalance. So you must alternate what you do in terms of probiotics. But kefir is always a go-to baseline probiotic that I feed. So what's your thoughts about it?
I definitely prefer getting your probiotics from fermented foods like that as opposed to taking a manufactured one, just because you're getting all of the all the beneficial chemistry that comes along with the probiotic in the fermented food. So I think it's a much better approach for giving a probiotic.
And things like kimchi, and that's also a good way to bring in the vegetables. It's like the fermented vegetables, and then give that to your dogs as well.
With my kimchi, it's too spicy, right? Like you have to be careful with spices for a dog. So do you have like a dog kimchi recipe?
If I say kimchi, actually I make sauerkraut. So the way I make sauerkraut, I will do that with veggies. I don't put anything in, so it will be other carrots. I'll grate carrots, some cabbage, and chop up some broccoli and things like that, and do the same way you make sauerkraut with no. So I don't make human kimchi for them. That is my spicy things. So I don't give that, but that is a great thing. Beetroot. And I alternate it. And I'm like the shoemaker's kids has got no shoes. My poor dogs don't get it every day. They get kefir. There's always kefir, and the blueberry or banana or pawpaw thing type of thing. But when it comes to sauerkraut and stuff like that, they get it like once every 2 weeks for a few days when it's finished, and then I need to make again and I forget. And so but it is definitely something that I feed for my dogs. Really, really, really often, and I think it's got a huge value in your gut biome for myself as well.
And I think almost anything that you feed, it's the best. The fermented foods, there's just so much data coming supporting it, helping the gut.
But once again, also note, you're not going to give a whole cup full of, like I literally for the beagles, I give like a small teaspoon of it. I don't do huge amounts because if you do too much, you can onset diarrhea and you can onset other gut issues again as well.
It's right. They're not like also with the kefir, like they're not puppies anymore. They shouldn't be having mostly milk, just a little bit.
And what? So I mean, I don't like doing cow milk. I know a lot of clients do their own kefir and they do use cow's milk. In terms of the fermentation, I do. My personal opinion is kefir, goat's milk is a better way to do it. It's got less lactose, and it's more tolerant, and the fat is more biologically available in goat's milk when you do the kefir from that.
Yeah, I've tried goat's milk, sheep's milk, and cow's milk. I think sheep's might be my favorite, but it depends on what you can get.
Yeah, but that is so. There's a company down the road from us at one of the road stalls that sells sheep's milk kefir. So I thought, sheep's milk, I'm going to get this for my dogs. And then I take this bottle and I promise you this 500 mils costs 310 Rand. So that is about, 310 Rand. I was like, oh my word, I can't believe it. For 500 mils of sheep's milk kefir.
Yeah.
But, so I've never seen sheep's milk. I think it's a very, I know there's some fancy cheeses that you get sheep and goat's milk, feta and things like that. But sheep milk is not something that we really get a lot in South Africa. But I think that would be, if you can get and you can make that would be the perfect combination because it's really a great alternative for that. And I also do my dogs every now and again. I give them when I make kombucha for myself. I will give them some of that. They're not particularly fond of it. Sometimes I find it very interesting, the zoopharmacology effect of you offering it. So sometimes some of my dogs won't take the kefir, they will eat around it. Okay. And then when I give kombucha, some will drink it, and so I offer it in a little bowl for them, and some will drink it and some won't. And then the next day the other one will drink the whole bowl by itself type of scenario. So it's quite interesting how they self-regulate and choose what they want to eat. In terms of fermented kombucha, kefir, sauerkraut, and those type of things. But yeah, it's an important part of giving to your dog. I really do think it helps a lot for gut biome health.
I agree, and I think it's really great you let them have a choice, right? Because that gives them some opportunity to feel like they have a say over something in their life.
So this is a question from one of our listeners, which said, when the gut is out of balance, what actually works to restore it? Where do you do testing? And when does probiotics, prebiotics, and microbiome restoration fit in? And how fast can owners expect to see a change? It's once again the how fast, and that's the piece of string type of thing. So now we're sitting in South Africa. We haven't got the benefits of having to send poop to. We can, but I mean, I think I've sent twice to you and you never got it. Type of because it gets unless you've got somebody that takes it over directly and send it. It's very difficult for us to do the testing in South Africa. I have spoken to a few labs to try and see if they won't start doing it, and if there's a lab that I've been talking to say if we can work with you, with Holly, in terms of what test needs to be so that we can do the testing. It's still early days. From my point of view, mostly we treat on guesswork. We don't have the real picture. So tell us about when you do the testing. Tell us about how the testing work and what AnimalBiome then does from that point of view.
Yeah. So when we can do the testing, right, it just gives us information. But first, I guess the testing, you should also just confirm or like make sure that they don't have like parasites or pathogens that your veterinarian can test for. But then what we do is microbiome testing. We can also identify some of the pathogens too. So it allows us to see, like, do they have an overgrowth of E. coli that we might need to address? Are they missing these beneficial gut bacteria that you could only get right now, mostly through a fecal transplant? Or do they have just a poor diet, or maybe just we all need different diets, right? Like I might need to eat more spinach than you every day to have a good balance in my gut. And so you can we can also sort of make some adjustments to the diet. Like maybe somebody doesn't eat any fiber, but other people need a little bit more. And that's just because everybody's a little bit different. So we can help identify these kinds of imbalances and monitor for them. You can also take a trial and error approach, right? When testing is not available, or it's just too expensive and you don't have the resources for it. So then you can do things, right? Like add fiber. There are some probiotics that I think I particularly like the Aspulardi, which should be available there. It's widely available in Europe. It was developed for humans for cholera. Actually, it came out of the South Pacific. A French microbiologist isolated it like 100 years ago. And it actually helps support the intestinal lining and to help reduce that sort of leaky gut from happening. And we've done a lot of work to show that you can give that alongside a fecal transplant. And so the yeast in that probiotic will not compete with the good bacteria that it should be in the gut. And what you want to do is sort of like try and reduce that diarrhea so that you can start to rebuild things there. And prebiotics, like we mentioned, adding a little bit to that prebiotic can help to start to feed the good bacteria. If they're there, maybe they're just really tiny amounts, and you can try and build them up with adding different fibers. Not too much. A little can go a long way.
Yeah. So once you've done the testing and you've done that, your biome transplant. So maybe we must explain to our readers what is a fecal transplant, because I don't think everybody really understands it. And in South Africa, I've actually had a situation with a dog that really needs a fecal transplant desperately. We could not find a vet that was prepared to do it. And then when we finally find a vet that at Onderstepoort, they said they will do it eventually after a major big thing, and then they refused to do it. We had a donor dog that was raw fed, because we wanted to do a raw fed transplant. We found a donor dog, and they refused to do it with a raw fed dog's poo. They refused. Okay. So because of and I think it's a is it off protocol, but the vets, it's not a allowed protocol in South Africa to do. So the vets are scared to do it because I think they don't want to stick their necks out, which is understandable. So I find, and whenever I've got anybody going to the States, they get some AnimalBiome and bring it back, because I think it's the most amazing product because you pop it in their food and they eat it, the capsule. Okay. So elaborate a little bit about how from the traditional conventional fecal transplant up to microbiome, your AnimalBiome product. Just color that in for us a little bit, please.
Yes. So it is a practice that goes back like in traditional medicine. Like there was like a poo tea in China that was done like 1,000 years ago. In veterinary medicine, it has been done at least in the UK, and going back 300 years for livestock, because you can imagine like your grazing animals, if they don't have the right bacteria, they can't digest their food. So, and they do it for horses too. companion animal medicine is newer, right? It's only really about 100 years old or so, 120 maybe. The way that it's new. So doing a fecal transplant in companion animal medicine is a newer thing. So they were building a lot on what humans, they do in human medicine. And here they were mostly using it to treat a C. diff infection. So you can get these antibiotic resistant they used to be Clostridium, it's now Clostridioides difficile. These can be a life-threatening infection, and sometimes people would pick them up at a hospital. They can have like multi-drug resistance. And what they found, they treated the people with like vancomycin repeatedly. And if it doesn't solve the problem, then for a long time they were letting them do a fecal transplant, because the way it works, so you're taking poop from a healthy individual and you're giving it to a sick individual. And with the people who've had C. diff have had lots of antibiotics, and so they have a very dysbiotic gut microbiome. And when you introduce that healthy community from a healthy person, C. diff is a terrible wimpy competitor. It's a frenemy like E. coli. And so if it has good competitors there, it's fine. You don't have to you don't need to eradicate it. I mean, it's not good to have the multi-drug resistant strain for sure. But the way that we've practiced medicine until recently, like with just a lot of antibiotics, we weren't thinking about the gut community, that ecosystem or engine that drives everything in the body. And so things are changing. I think they're starting to be more thoughtful about like, let's make sure we use antibiotics when we have to. But yeah, so it's basically, they call it competitive exclusion. Like you add in the healthy community and it actually like outcompetes the frenemies like E. coli and C. diff and even C. perfringens. So the way that they did it in humans is they would give lots of more antibiotics, and then they would they'd try and clean everything out, and then they would by enema, or they could do it like through the nose, deliver fecal material like that they've mixed in a slurry with saline into the gut. The way that I came up with, because I was thinking about like people's pets in homes, cats, right? Like who don't really love going to the vet and like having a major procedure done like that, I'm more of an ecologist. So I was like, what if we just take that healthy poop, we freeze dry it, we grind it, we put it in a capsule, and you give like a little bit every day over time, and you try and seed it. I'm sort of thinking about, right, like also the dog that's self-medicating with eating poop, like they might eat a little bit today and a little bit tomorrow and be able to re-inoculate themselves. And these microbes, actually, some of them are able to pass through the stomach and still survive and colonize the gut. Our capsules have a coating on them so that they don't get harmed by the stomach acid. I don't recommend opening them up because it is poop and we don't really want you to get exposed to it either. But it's been tested for parasites and pathogens, unlike like the random poop your dog might be eating. You always have to worry about that when they just eat something on the street. So yeah, our approach is like 1 or 2 capsules a day for like 30 days. How quickly can they improve? I mean, if they're like a young animal where they've just had soft stool and it's not been like a lifetime of inflammatory problems, it can be within a week or less, sometimes even a few days. But for some animals who've been sick for a long time, it can take much longer. So some of them need to stay on it even long term. And in that case, what I recommend is they see what's the minimum amount you can do. Like sometimes you just give 1 capsule a week and it's enough to sort of keep things. But if they don't take it at all, they start to regress. So it's like 80% say within 30 days, they see at least some improvement. Sometimes it's like dramatic and amazing. We are really lucky that this is it is really a very beneficial thing to do.
I can say is, look, I'm a sole advocate. I want to say a groupie of AnimalBiome, because it really has made a huge big difference in 2 of my dogs' lives. And although they're still itchy and scratchy from where they were, Leia literally had no hair on her from her shoulders on. She had no hair, and after the first course, she started growing hair, and I did a 60-day with her in Titan at that stage. And it made a huge difference because she's now got hair in her tummy. She still scratches. I've just had her on another 60-day course of it again. And I actually think I should have done it a long time ago already, because there's huge improvement. So I've got a feeling she's one of those candidates that's going to need to have it more regularly, or in either one a week type of scenario, or long term. But it definitely does make a huge big difference. Now, when you do that, and you've mentioned earlier, I do some probiotics that goes with it. So Espelari is one of them, and we've got a product in South Africa that I stumbled across that I think is absolutely amazing. It's called Biorem Ferment. It's a fermented, it's a very, very nice combination of a heck of a lot of bacteria, and it really works very well. So with that for me has got really good results. But what I do have a few people that has started using the product, that they actually at starting the product, I now say to them, depending on how bad the dog is, start slowly, and don't start with the tablets or capsules a day. Start slowly. Start with half a dose, or do it every second day or every third day, because otherwise you can have a reaction to it as well, because it is a shock on your gut when you do something. It's a shock, and there's this baddies in the tummy, and then there's a good guy coming in, and they just want to sort of say, no, we don't want you, yeah, let's work you out type of scenario. So
it's true. There's a lot of warfare going on.
Yeah. So I think it's also important that people need to understand is that, and that can happen with a normal probiotic as well. You can have a probiotic that does not agree with the dog initially, then start slower, lower dosages to get the gut sort of. It's quite this garden inside our bodies is quite a mystery about what flowers grow where and how that it grows type of thing, and how much water do you need to give it, and how much. It's like what fertilizer do you need to put in there to get the right flowers growing, and it's like it's quite an interesting field that you've got in terms of studying it. I think it must be very interesting, and getting your nose into books and research with all the variables in gut biome.
Yeah, it's definitely a fascinating field, and something that's going to keep me busy for the rest of my life. I love it. I agree absolutely about this. Start slow, like even one a week, right? And then see if you can do 2 a week, and then every other day, right? And then it depends. Like some of them can take it real quick. I mean, you could start with 1 a day, and then if they do fine, you're set, right? But then if they don't, we should just stop it, wait till things settle down, and then start more slowly. You can sort of take it depends on what they want to do, which tack to take.
If there's something that you would say some, because I mean, for us it is quite a pricey thing, because it comes from the States and it's not always available. It gets lost in transit sometimes, and if you don't have somebody that can bring it over, there might be times that you can't get it and your dog needs it really, really badly. What alternatives would you suggest that we do in terms of how can we sort of do things at home, besides putting the probiotics and the prebiotics and those things in, what is an affordable thing that our listeners can do at home on a daily basis, or that they can do tomorrow? Go out tomorrow and start adding to the dogs, to change their dog's gut health.
I just feel like feeding a consistent, nutritionally balanced, fresh diet is really the number one thing you can do for your dog. The second thing I would say is, when you have to take them to the veterinarian and they suggest an antibiotic, just really ask them if it's necessary. Trying to minimize antibiotic exposure is a really good way to protect that gut community, because otherwise we have to do a fecal transplant or something else to get things back. Otherwise, I mean, like letting them spend time outside eating random things can also help, right? Like give them some diversity. But and I'm not saying I think antibiotics are life-saving, so I'm not saying don't use them, but just like my dog, we have these like grass plants here called foxtails. I don't know if you have them. They might be, the grasses are everywhere. They go into their paws, they go up their nose, and then you have to take them to the vet, because otherwise they will migrate through the body and cause problems. They've even gotten them in the heart. They can go in the brain. So my dog got one in his paw, and we had to have it removed. And then they wanted us to take a systemic antibiotic for it to avoid getting an infection. but what I asked my vet was, can I wash it every day and keep an eye on it? And I'll take the antibiotic, but only give it if it seems like he gets signs of an infection so that I can protect that gut. And they were fine with that. So there are times when you can sort of say, hey, hold on, I'd rather be conservative about that, because every time we take antibiotics, we lose things, and we may not, in some cases, get them back again.
No, I think it's something that pet parents are really scared to ask the vet not to take it, or can we not take it. They don't. They are very. I mean, I get it so often. And I get and said my dog had a little bit of diarrhea, and I said how bad it was. And I took it to the vet. It was put on metronidazole, and they know it's bad, or they know it's not necessary, but they are so intimidated by the vet saying this is what you've got to do. And in South Africa, metronidazole is totally overprescribed. It is.
Oh, we have it too.
It's been used for things that it's not even related to, that I think it's crazy. There is a room for it. I mean, I'm not saying it's the worst thing in the world. There is a room for it. I mean, I had a dog on a long-term basis on a very small dosage of metronidazole, and when we got him to wean him off, it's a very long story, but when we got him to wean it off, I did the microbiome course with him for 60 days, and he's fine, and he's weaned off a bit. But there was a period that we could not do it, that because I mean he would be in ICU. That's how ill he would be. So there is room for it. But I do think metronidazole for just every little sloppy poop that's just there is not always necessary, and there is natural ways to do it as well. So it's awareness. It's telling people you've got to look after your dog's gut, try and avoid it, and what is the alternatives to do it to a certain extent without putting your dog's life in danger.
Yes, and like Espelardi, can resolve the diarrhea as fast as metronidazole, and it doesn't harm the gut.
Yeah, I think Espelardi is the one that is very underrated, and people are getting more aware of it, but people are not aware. It's like, I don't know if you've got it in the States. We've got this. I'm not going to say the name. There's a probiotic being sold by vets. It's this little green bottle, okay, with powder in that has got a flipping 20-year expiry date type of thing almost. And I always say, and it's not cheap. It's actually quite expensive. And people use it and they think, but I give my dog this, it should not have diarrhea, and I'm giving it a good probiotic. And understanding that a probiotic is a live thing. It's not something that you get in a dead plastic tub that's been sitting on the vet shelf for months before you feed it. There's good probiotics, and I always say if it's something that needs to be in the fridge, it's usually one that I would use. Because it's a live culture type of scenario, and especially once you've opened it. Once you've opened it, it must be protected, because if it gets a powder that's in a bowl that gets opened and gets oxygen in whatever, it loses all the effectiveness. So
actually, I haven't thought about that. I mean, we've been spending a lot of time because we have our new probiotics that we've been launching. And I used to believe that too, right? And that I think if they're stored in the fridge when you buy them, that can be a good sign, right? And the stuff that's been on the shelf for years in your vet's practice are dead, right? Like, and many veterinary probiotics are contain mostly dead organisms. That's why the fermented foods are the best way, because you know that they're alive and they're making all the good stuff. We've isolated Helicobacter hirnonis, which is a really important gut bacterium. We have 2 products with it, one for cats and one for dogs. And now that we're starting to go into summer, we're going to be shipping it on ice pack to protect it, because some people have horrifying thought is some people have hot mailboxes, which is just going to kill it, right? So we want to do what we can to protect it from shipping. And when you get it, we actually want people to keep it at room temperature, because if you take that bottle in and out of the refrigerator, you're shifting the temperature for those, and that actually kills more of them than keeping them at the same temperature. So if you were going to just take one out, maybe that would be fine, but people are going to take the whole bottle in and out, and that's just not good for the capsules that are in that bottle. And a cold thing coming out into a warm room, it will draw moisture to it. And the number one thing that's actually going to kill the viability of your probiotic is moisture. So it's better if it's the same temperature as the room, but just you should ideally, like if you open it, use it within 30 days or a reasonable amount of time.
And when it's a liquid?
Oh yeah, liquid's different. I'm less familiar with that, with the stability of liquids. So you might have to look at what the manufacturer recommends there. But they should be doing research on stability of their products and giving you advice. But I know that there's been research in the past showing that so many of them are not viable.
In terms of it, and I also think is, and another question that I get quite a lot is can I use human probiotics on my dog? And I say yes, as long as because there is S. pylori is something that humans and dogs and cats can use. So there's not necessarily an issue if you use a human probiotic that works for you on your dogs.
I mean, so yeah, S. pylori was isolated from a plant, right? And so it's an environmental microbe was part of traditional medicine in the South Pacific, and and it's beneficial for a whole range of animals, livestock too, horses.
Cows, yeah. Antonette, it looks like you've got something on your.
I do. I actually wanted to know. No, I'm completely enthralled with the conversation here, but there's something that keeps popping into my head. Vaccines, do they impact the microbiome?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the microbiome is interacting extensively with the immune system. I still don't, it's been a while since I looked into the literature, but the last time I looked, which might have been around 2019 or something, so there was not sufficient data to really, to know. But I think there is research like with immunotherapies showing that the microbiome that you have can influence your response to it. And so I know there are like therapeutic level probiotic cocktails that are in development to show like people who respond better, like making sure that everybody has the right microbes so that they can actually respond sufficiently. So I think we still need to learn more with vaccines. We are doing a chemotherapy study now to look at that, but yeah, I'm not yet aware. There could be something that's come along that I haven't found yet.
Okay, so if I understand you correctly, then so if my dog has got a resilient microbiome and a resilient gut, then that sets him up better when he has to go for his vaccine. Yes,
yeah, I think that I mean, if it should be resilient and it should respond appropriately. But if they are having like an autoimmune condition, the microbiome has gotten trained like in a bad way then I can imagine that they may not respond the right way because of like having systemic inflammation and other issues.
Okay, all right. Okay.
All the more reason to feed them well and support them as much as you can.
Yeah, it's okay. Our time is running up, but I just want to say, so Ali, you've mentioned earlier you did some studies in Namibia. So coming to South Africa in September is not your first visit to South Africa, and we're looking forward a lot. I'm really looking forward to having you with us, and I think we're gonna learn a lot. I know I'm gonna learn a lot again and again and again, because there's always something new coming up. Tell our listeners why they should come and listen to you and attend the African Pet Health to meet you and learn a little bit more about gut health.
I'm so excited to come and get to go back to South Africa. It's been a long time for me, more than a decade. And mostly I interacted with wildlife, spent some time in Kruger. I did get to do some work with black-footed cats out not too far from where you are, I think, but I've never been to Cape Town. I really look forward to talking to people, telling them about fecal transplants, but also just about like why feeding the gut microbiome is so foundational for health. And I think that prevention, understanding how to care for our pets is so important. And maybe there are ways in which we can be more like, some things we do may not be necessary, right? Maybe we can save money by like not like overusing probiotics or when we don't need to, if we don't have a problem. So I think that it can set you up to have better success and hopefully have them, be as healthy for as long as they can.
That's great. Really looking forward to seeing you in South Africa. Can't wait. I'm starting to count the days almost. Now we're still on weeks, not months anymore. We're now on weeks. Anyway, thank you. I just want to quickly see. I don't see there hasn't been questions. I think most of the questions was asked beforehand, and we actually covered it in our little question, in the questions we've asked you. So thank you very much for giving up your time to us. I know it's in the middle of your working day, and have a wonderful rest of your week. And to everybody else, see you next week.
Brilliant.
And next week
Thank you very much.
We've got Dr.
I know. I've remembered.
We've got Dr. Judy Morgan next week. So looking really forward to that. See you again, guys. Have a nice week.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Holly.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.